Hi there, this is David, and today I want to be talking about the brand new Final Fantasy XVI DLC, Echoes of the Fallen, that just came out, and I would like to thank Square Enix for a free code for review. For me, there's really only like two reasons to play a DLC expansion. It really either has to have like a really good story edition or some really good gameplay additions, or hopefully both. But, so you have to wonder, how does Echoes of the Fallen stack up? What does it have? Does it have story? Does it have gameplay? Does it have both? We don't know. So that's what I want to go over here today, y'all. And if you are new to the channel, please be sure to subscribe for some more reviews, top 10s, and news, and also hit the like button for the ratio. And now, let's go ahead and get started. First things first, you're going to want to know that the DLC itself is on sale for $9.99. However, you can buy that Season Pass thingamajig and get it as well as the next DLC expansion pack, The Rising Tide, which is due out in spring, together for $24.99. And just in order to play, you have to have already pretty much beaten the game, or at least gotten to the end dungeon so that Origin is unlocked on the world map. And in addition to this, you have to have completed the side quests, Where There Is a Will, as well as Priceless. If you recall, both of those two particular side quests focus on the character building of Jill as well as Joshua, and it leads the pair to join up with Clive permanently upon the completion, which is pretty essential for this DLC. Also, bonus items, such as the Buster Sword, will be available for redemption from the System tab, and you'll be able to now change all of your characters' appearances over at the Art Stone in the Hideaway, as well as change their weapon appearances without any sort of detriment to what they're actually equipped with. For example, you could have Clive running around with a Buster Sword even though the stats kinda suck, and it would still just take into account the stats that he has on the sword that he actually is equipped in the menu. It's just purely cosmetic only. Okay, with all that stuff out of the way, the housekeeping nonsense and everything, I want to talk about the actual DLC and my take on DLC and gaming in general. Because maybe I'm an odd duck, but I really can't play multiple games at the same time. I personally have some memory issues, and if I put a game down for a period of time, even 3 days, I'm going to forget how to play this stupid thing, and I'm going to have to go and spend a couple of minutes relearning the controls, as well as remembering the story that's going on. For this reason, I really do like to play all of my games at one time, so that I can learn the controls inside and out, ingratiate myself to the various characters and to the lore, and really immerse myself into the entirety of the story to really do see what the game has to offer. Then, once I've done everything that I've set out to do, I can then put the game down and put it back on my shelf, knowing that I've gotten my money's worth and that I've done everything that I wanted to do with it. For that reason, it takes a lot for me to go back into a game, especially one that I beat months ago. I am dumb as a bum, and I really need to spend some time reacquainting myself with all the controls. I mean, it's not like it was back when I was a kid, and all you had to do was worry about what the A and the B buttons did. Now there's 1,000,000,001 buttons, you've got to press them all and relearn. So I'm always thinking to myself, is this DLC actually worth the hassle of all this? It's either got to be extraordinarily interesting, adding on a ton of lore and world building, or it has to add some sort of amazing gameplay additions. Or in the best case scenario, it would add both. So, while this one doesn't add too much to the gameplay side, I mean, it's not like you get another icon to mess around with or anything else like that, it does add quite a bit of world building as well as some references to previous Final Fantasies. If you recall in the mainline story, the land of Rosaria didn't really have its own Mother Crystal. Instead, it siphoned the power of the Mother Crystal that was off the coast. Yet, at the same time, it was also the first country to suffer the ravages of the Blight. Considering what we know about the crystals and that they kind of steal the ether from the land in order to power up their magic, this was always kind of like a conundrum. Why would a land that doesn't even have its own crystal be the first one to suffer the effects of the Blight? Well, that big question is answered here in this DLC. Not only that, but you also get to learn much more about the Fallen, also known as that great JRPG staple of ancient ancestors who possessed high technology, but unfortunately misused that technology in order to bring about their own ruin. So their ruins are scattered around the planet, you kind of see them, but you don't really know much about them. So here, you get to learn more about the Fallen, and more about the Blightlands, and more about that ancient technology, and a little something about the Magitech War too. Does that sound familiar to anybody? It should to anybody here who's ever played Final Fantasy VI, because the Magitek War took place 1,000 years before the events of Final Fantasy VI. Yet, here we are, hearing that same term, and also hearing that it took place back in the past. And then, as you explore the expansion's new dungeon, lo and behold, what do you find? You find ancient magical beasts, locked away in glass containers, just like the Espers of Final Fantasy VI were locked away in the Magitek research facility before having their life force siphoned away into Magicite. It's also similar here, as those creatures are having their life forces siphoned away into crystals now. It really is just kind of one of those things that make you go, It begs the question, does Final Fantasy XVI and Final Fantasy VI take place in the same world, just thousands of years apart from one another? Or is it all just like a big coincidence? Maybe that question will remain to be answered in the upcoming Rising Tide DLC. I've got to say though, if you're looking for story, that's why you're going to be playing this expansion, because the gameplay, that's just more of the same. You first access the quest line by talking over to Sharon in the Hideaway. Then, you do the good old Final Fantasy XVI thing, where you go from Sharon, over to Joshua, over to Harpocrates, then over to Port Isolde, till you're finally locked into the quest, and from there you go on a wild goose chase, chasing after the Three Stooges, who started this whole mess in the first place. The endless chasing of these bandits, followed by the mounting and unmounting of the chocobos, only to have the chocobos slow down to a crawl so that Clive can blab on, gets old so fast. The DLC begins with the worst aspects of Final Fantasy XVI, that whole kind of like, fetch questy, follow these little markers thing. I will say this though, once you get into the main dungeon of the DLC, called the Sage Spire, the story, as well as the difficulty, definitely ramps up a notch. Just as the whole Magitek War gave me Final Fantasy VI vibes, the Sage Spire gave me floating castle vibes from Final Fantasy I. Not only is it futuristic, absolutely beautiful, and filled to the brim with mechanical enemies, but it's also like eerily alive and unsettling, yet at the same time ethereal and gorgeous as the sun shines through its decrepit ruins. Here, you're going to be exploring the tower, going from floor to floor and fighting boss after boss until you hit the final boss of the area, who I'm not going to spoil here, but if you did play Final Fantasy I, then you might have a little inkling as to who you're going to be facing. It was definitely a throwback, and I am glad that I had the opportunity to play this DLC, because it was worth having to relearn the controls, and it was also worth having to put down Dragon Quest monsters for a hot minute in order to reacquaint myself with Valisthea. Also, one last thing that I've just got to point out. I saw many people saying on Twitter and whatnot that the DLC was short, taking roughly 3 to 4 hours. But I'm going to tell you right now, I recorded my entire playthrough, and that includes me sitting around trying to refigure out the controls, and just kind of running around from point A to point B, while making little mistakes and fooling around in the menu and stuff like that, and because I've recorded it all, I know exactly how long it took. 1 hour and 50 minutes. So I don't know where they're getting this 3 or 4 hour figure, but I'm telling you, it's about 1 hour and 50 minutes. Do keep that in mind. So that's it from our review of the Final Fantasy XVI DLC Echoes of the Fallen. How did you feel about it, and are you going to get it? Let's get a discussion going on here, and let's all talk and chat about it, because I'm always in the comments too. And if you like what I do here over on the channel, please head on over to the Patreon to sign up for early access to my videos, as well as behind the scenes photographs. The link to it is over in the video description, and as always, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.